Thank you, Shirley and Jay. These are two important and really good friends. And thank you for the Dellenback Award. I'm honored. This is special in two ways. One is to receive this award. The other is something happened today in relation to tonight that I don't ever remember happening before. It was a short email that says, "Ben Sass isn't coming. Could you talk a little longer?" So not much longer, but 5 or 6 minutes. So John Dellenback, he was an amazing man, professor of law, a member of the Oregon State Legislature, a member of the House of Representatives of the United States, president of CCCU. Not mentioned is he was also chair of the board of World Vision. And I serve on the board of World Vision. In fact, came here from Seattle, was there yesterday. Sat with Rich Stearns at the table at a dinner like this 2 nights ago, and we talked about John Dellenback. This is someone who had significant influence in so many different venues, so that is an extra special part of this honor. I was a teenager in one of the CCCU schools, and I came to a strange conclusion that I should quit school and do something important. And it just seemed to me that going to class when I could be out there doing something for God and good was the appropriate thing to do. So I wrote a letter to my father telling him that I was thinking about dropping out of college in order to do something worthwhile. And he wrote a letter back to me that I wish I had saved. He told me that when he was a young student, he considered the same thing, and that he went to his mentor and asked for advice. His mentor was Donald Gray Barnhouse, the pastor of 10th Presbyterian Church in Philadelphia, where Phil Ryken later served also as pastor. And his letter told me that Barnhouse said to him that if he had 10 years to live, he would take 9 of them in preparation and 1 in service, convinced that he would accomplish more in that 1 than if he spent 1 in preparation and 9 in service. And my father gave all the credit to Barnhouse. I think actually it goes back to a quote from Abraham Lincoln. And Lincoln said, "If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 4 sharpening the axe, and I would have accomplished more in the 6 hours than if I had spent the entire 6 hours without the sharpening." And he said, the sharpening of the axe is the multiplier. It's a great line from Lincoln, the multiplier. So I stayed in school for a total of 30 years. And it's been a privilege. It's been a privilege to be a student. I'm a graduate of 3 CCCU schools and have a couple of honorary doctors from a couple more of them, and have taught in a number of schools, was an interim president of one, served as chair of the board of a CCCU university. So it's been a privilege. You know, we can't pick our generation, but if I had a choice, I'd pick my generation. I think it's been an amazing generation, and I wouldn't trade. But I wonder about generations and what's going on. So I'm going to read to you from a Los Angeles Times article. It talks about the United States and challenging times. And I want you to listen just a small sample of some statistics in the LA Times. It says in American Magazine, 75% of young men tested were suffering from some health defect, and it was induced by mental anxiety. That the FBI reports that the average age of criminals is 19. That there are government estimates of abortions, sexually transmitted diseases that are the highest of any generation. That marriages are 4 times as likely to end in divorce as 50 years earlier. Quotes a prominent journalist, Maxine Johnson. She traveled 10,000 miles across America studying the younger generation and concluded that teenagers are confused, disillusioned, and disenchanted. It quotes a government documentary. Says, dope peddlers infest our high schools in every community and hamlet in our country. Hundreds of new drug cases involving our youth come in every day. So it's a really bleak picture of young people in the American culture. What's interesting is these are all quotes from 1936 and 1937. And the sociologists and the pundits of the time referred to the generation of the 1930s as the lost generation. And Tom Brokaw got another name for them. He wrote a book in which he described this as the greatest generation. Brokaw, in his book, wrote that this is the generation that toiled through the Great Depression, won World War II, supplied 3 decades of statesmen, a can-do spirit, and family stability. It is the greatest generation that any society has ever produced. And Brokaw didn't say that this once called lost generation is the generation that had an unprecedented impact for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Billy Graham, born in 1918, he was part of this then lost generation. He preached to 2.2 billion people, at least electronically and as well as in person, more than anybody else in all of history. And then I think one of the most amazing elements is that after World War II, during World War II, there were those who had lived in counties all of their lives. Some of them never been out of them. They were drafted into the military. They went around the globe. They saw the world. They came back with a GI Bill, and they came to many CCCU schools and others and decided to go back into a missionary movement that has resulted in now 2 billion Christians around the world, hundreds of millions of people who are faithful followers of Jesus Christ because the axe was sharpened, because they spent the time, because they went to school, because they are effective in what they accomplished and did. So that troubled generation is the one that has made an extraordinary difference. And now I see that as, I just have overwhelming confidence in CCCU schools, that you are actually in the process of sharpening the axe, of preparing the way for an even greater generation. Thank you.